Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Reesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with teZa Lord, spirit author, artist, and activist. Please enjoy teZa Lord. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today, I am here with teZa Lord, spirit author, artist, and activist. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be here.
I am so excited to talk with you about creativity and all of the creative endeavors and expressions that you have. But before we get to that, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Oh my gosh, do we have about 10 hours? I don't know. I'm a creative junkie, and I'm also a spirit junkie, and I'm a loveologist. I just spread the joy of being a creative person in as many ways as I can. Yeah. And currently podcasting is one of the ways that is best embraced by the world. It's wonderful how podcasting has become such a great new creative expression.
Yeah.
I also do books. I'm just finishing my 5th book, my first novel, which is really cool, going into fiction after having done all nonfiction, my previous books. And I also am a visual artist and a sculptor and filmmaker, and you name it. Every moment is creative,
I love
making the meal in front of us is creative.
Yeah. So true. I too enjoy the cooking the kitchen creativity.
Oh yeah. I call it household yoga.
Oh,
To make your house so it's like a yogic experience where it's all mind, body, spirit, because it really makes a difference how we live. Yeah. And the energy. Somebody calls it, feng shui or something, but I just call it being mindful of the energy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so much creativity shows up in that, in mindfulness, in energetic experiences, how we make choices in terms of decorating and color and all of that to imbue our creative expression into the spaces and places we are.
Yeah, every little thing counts, like even the color of our underwear.
This is true.
As I reach for my underpants of the day.
Right, I know. I'm wondering, what color are mine today?
I go for purple whenever I have a chance. Let's keep it really high.
I love it. I think mine are cream today. Not so
it's just kind of a blah
I know it is. It's okay. I'm wearing
blend in blah day.
Gotta make some choices, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about creativity, what does it mean to you to be creative?
Well, as a lifelong person who loves to do creative things, I've been asked to teach several times, and there's always inevitably somebody who shows up in a class that says, "Oh, I haven't got a creative bone in my body." And whenever anybody says that, I say, "No, you just haven't discovered it yet." I mean, I love to turn people on to the natural creativity that we all have. And as a yoga person, I really understand that creativity is also like a very base human evolution of consciousness. It comes right after survival in terms of the chakras, when you study the chakras. So first we learn how to, stay alive, not get ourselves electrocuted or falling off a cliff. And then the natural thing that happens as we evolve, and in our adolescence, we feel it. We start to wonder, who am I? Yeah. Where did I come from? And that's the spiritual energy. But also coinciding with the spiritual energy arising is that urge to create. So, okay, it can either become like creative, like of things, or some people just start creating babies,
Sure.
like that's a natural form of our yearning to create. And so it's just so much a part of being human. And when people deny it, I always challenge them. I'll say, look, you just haven't looked at it the right way.
Right. Yeah, it is interesting that creative energy and how as children it's just kind of flowing out of us. We don't have a stopper to it. And as we get a little older, we start to question that. And I'm curious, in your experience, have you always had this overflowing creative energy, or is it something that has taken cultivating?
Oh, probably a little bit of both, because I do believe that once a person has decided that they're going to dedicate themselves to a creative life, which I decided right after I explored other possibilities, in college. It just
Yeah.
wasn't for me. I thought I might be a lawyer, but oh no, that wasn't for me. But have a creative life was something, like you said, all children have. But then as an adult, we get to choose, like, oh, what am I going to do with my life? And so if we choose to be a creative person, then of course it's up to us if we're going to go into studying. Like in my case, I wanted to learn how to draw the human body. So I studied anatomy, a perspective, because without anatomy underneath the skin, like these bones, I mean, they form the way we are. And so it's very hard to draw a human being without studying anatomy. And so the more you study, the more, of course, you learn. And then you have to seriously tune into that child within. So you have a combination of the spontaneity, of the joyfulness of creating. So you don't get all serious and muddied up about it and usually wreck artwork by going too far. And also using the expertise that you learn through either studying or just keep making art. And I think a really good example of that is Picasso. A lot of people don't even know what an incredible draftsman he was. Early in his life, he could draw anything.
Yeah.
And his famous drawings of the Minotaur are still quite phenomenal. I saw an exhibition just like 2 weeks ago comparing Picasso with Albrecht Dürer, the famous draftsman from the 14th century. And then Picasso said to himself, okay, I can draw anything I want, but it's kind of boring to just draw what I see. So he invented, how to fragment his perception. And you can, if you study the evolution of Picasso's consciousness, you can see him fragmenting something that's realistic. And most people think, well, the guy just didn't know how to draw, but he did. He could draw anything. That's a great example, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And in terms of just like allowing the creativity to change you and move you in new directions.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel that that's happened in my own life. And it sounds like it has also happened in yours too.
Yeah. And after my student years, well, I also worked with a lot of professional artists. I've been lucky to have mentors who are really top-notch, world-class artists. So to live in close proximity to people who are in the art world, that's like going to Yale and getting a PhD in whatever it is, art history. But the thing that I came away with is that it's so important to just allow the creative force to come through us once we understand our basic tools. And then it becomes almost like a meditation. You just get your ego out of the way, you get your intellect out of the way, and you allow yourself to be this funnel, this just this gush of the river of grace.
Yeah, really stepping into that flow space and
Yeah.
experience. Do you have little tricks that you use to support yourself to get into that flow space? Or is it, some
Yeah.
days it works and some days it doesn't?
No, it always works when,
Oh, I
because
love
I
that.
no, for me it always works. I have no writer's block. I have no, it's
Mm,
just like, wow, how many lifetimes can I jam into this one I have? Because there's so much I want to express. And
yeah.
even looking at a cloud, I could take a walk and look at a cloud and I'll say, oh my God, I can't wait to get back to my studio to interpret that as either sculpture,
Mhm.
painting, or poem or whatever, dance even, But I think for me, the most important thing is it was expressed so well by a writing teacher named Dorothea Brandy in this book I read, and it's almost like my Bible
Mm,
for creativity. It's called How to Be a Writer. And
mm.
she explains it as a creative coma. She said, you have to get into a creative coma because we're all geniuses,
Yeah,
and you have to get, she doesn't talk about the ego or any of
right.
those funnels of grace like I did. And she says, get into a creative coma, and only when you feel this urge of expression come into you, it's almost like, it's a huge urge, you have to belch, just let it out. Then you pick up whatever tool it is you're using. In the case of writing, it's a pencil or a pen or a keyboard,
Hmm.
and you just go with it. And you don't
Yeah,
allow your brain to go into that editor mode.
right.
Oh, it's not good enough. Oh, it's not, strong enough. Oh, it's not pretty enough. Oh, you can't have that. So to get into that mode takes training. You
Hmm.
have to tell your mind, okay, be quiet now. We're not going to be into the critique, the either the constructive critique or the non-constructive critique. We're just going to be in the flow, as you called
Yeah,
it.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it strikes me as, it takes a lot of practice to get into that space, to catch your mind when it wants to critique and say, nope, we're not going to do that. We're going to get back into our flow coma or our
Yeah.
creative coma space and just be one with whatever it is we're doing. And I'm wondering if you have any tips for people around, you know, catching yourself wanting to critique and how to
Yeah.
set that aside.
Well, it's almost like a nasty little voice comes in. Of
Yeah.
course, we all know that voice. Oh, I'm not good enough. This isn't good enough. Oh,
Right.
wow, wow, wow. You just have to tell it to be quiet. That's the
Mm-hmm.
monkey mind. And I think I can share this example of when I was really, really aware of the fact that I had to get into that creative mode.
Mm-hmm.
I was applying for the art school that I went to, which
Mm-hmm.
was the school of the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston.
Oh.
And it was a really cool school. And I just think, I didn't see it. I had a chance in hell to get in there. Because I'd never had any art lessons. I was raised basically by parents who said, you got to pay the rent first and feed the kids and then think about creativity.
Mm-hmm.
After everything's done,
Yeah.
maybe, but nobody has any energy left over after all that is done.
Right.
So I remember the portfolio that you had to for your entry
Mm-hmm.
application was to prove that you knew how to do art. So I copied. That's all I knew how to do. Copy, 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 copy,
Mm-hmm.
copy. That's how I taught myself how to draw. And then I thought, well, this is okay. They'll see it that I'm an expert copyist, which I was and still am.
Mm-hmm.
But wouldn't it, I think if I'm going to art school, especially such a great one, I should show them that I have creativity. And I
Mm.
thought, wow, that means I've got to come up with something nobody ever in this world has ever come up with, like truly creative, a new thought. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. So I was really dumbfounded because
Mm-hmm.
nobody had ever taught me how to do this. And I was already like a college person.
Yeah.
And I'd gone that long without being taught how to be creative. So I just said, I'm going to focus on something I'm familiar with, which were the four seasons of the weather,
Mm-hmm.
and the four seasons that most of us are familiar with. Not so much where I live in Florida, but we have subtle seasons.
Yeah.
And then I forced myself into going into this mode where that no other previous image or a poem or song or any way of interpreting spring, summer, fall or winter came, and I took one at a time, and it really was like hard. I remember it was like as if I had never done a push-up before. And all of a sudden, oh my God, it was like that excruciating. But
Yeah.
I did it. And it burst through my resistance by the fact that I said, I just have to do it.
Mhm.
Because, and I was accepted at the museum school in the first round of application, which was unheard of because they just didn't do that. They really
Yeah.
were very strict about who they let in there. And I was blown away. I said, wow, I guess I have a responsibility to my creativity now.
Mm. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that story. I mean,
Isn't that,
I love
yeah,
that drive and that curiosity of how do I express creatively and not copy, and what is that experience? And I mean, it just
yeah,
sounds like you have so much inspiration, or find inspiration in so many different areas of your life. When you find inspiration, how do you know which form it will take for you? If you're,
oh
a
yeah.
sculptor and a writer and a painter and a mover.
Yeah, even just doing a podcast, not just a podcast, because that takes a little more effort, but putting a post up on Twitter or Instagram. We want all of our efforts to be creative.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's in the simplest little thing. So for me, I decided after I had my education, which was really basic, because when I went to art school, I didn't know the difference between the colors.
Mhm.
I'd never heard of the color wheel. I'd never heard of perspective. I mean, I was really
Mhm.
basically untrained. But by the end of my time at the museum school, I was right up there with the best, I think. So it became important for me to um, tap into that place, which is called creative thinking, like
Mhm.
not derivative.
Yeah.
And so to get to there, you have to study all the masters. You have to study the history of art. You
Mhm.
have to realize that, yes, Picasso was a wonderful draftsman, but then he became a cubist. And, you have to become a professional.
Mhm.
And I took pride in really understanding that. And, as an American artist, I thought I knew a lot about the world. But
Mhm.
when I finally met my mentor, who was a European artist whose name is Hundertwasser,
Mm,
I
great.
had never heard of him. And I was so embarrassed because he was truly a master. When I ran into him while I was sailing in the Caribbean, he has since departed us. He's not on the earth any longer, but he's right up there with
Mhm.
Matisse and
Yeah.
Warhol, anybody who has a recognizable name.
Mhm.
But yet, okay, we study as much as we can, and then after a while, you let go of everything that you've learned
Mhm.
and just cast your fate to the winds of creativity and just invite in something like there's nothing new, of course. Everything's been done before,
Yeah.
but we mix and we match and we be alchemists and present it in a different and new way.
Mhm. Nice. Yeah. In terms of, you know, when you said being inspired by clouds and then coming back to your studio, and how do you make that decision of, I'm going to interpret this in sculpture or in painting or in poetry?
Oh, gosh, usually it's like, what's the most urgently needed expression? For instance,
Yeah.
right now I'm working on illustrations for my novel.
Oh,
I
okay.
would love to be doing sculpture. I would love to be doing more little videos, but right now I'm really almost finished with X number of illustrations and I'm right in the flow.
Yeah.
So I have a mission. Sometimes I don't have like a
Mhm.
project that I'm in the middle of, but I always have enough inspiring materials and ongoing projects in my studio so that I can say, oh, today I feel like not doing the black and white illustrations. I feel like picking up some oil crayons and,
Yeah.
going into this unfinished canvas or piece of wood or
Mhm.
beaded thing or feathered thing or paper mache. So I surround myself with a lot of really good, inspiring materials.
Nice. I love
Hmm.
that. I love how just the openness and willingness it sounds like you have to let whatever's inside come out in whatever material you're called to on a
Yeah,
given day.
it's like a double-edged sword though, because I've had in my history of exhibiting, for
Mhm.
instance, I've had some gallery people say, "Man, it looks like 20 people created this show that you're putting together." And some gallery people, they're just sick in the muds. They're just thinking
Yeah.
about the commercial aspect. They want everything to be like, okay, this is a teZa Lord, or this
Mhm.
is from the teZa Lord's era. Like, the Picasso, they call it the blue period or the rose
Right.
period, or, well, fiddlesticks to that. Because sometimes you just can't force it. They call it the muse. The muse takes over.
Yeah.
The muse tells you what to do. And the muse is your connection to this incredibly unimaginable, powerful source of cosmic energy. It's
Yeah.
really like putting your fingers into the electric socket of the divine.
Hmm.
That's the muse to me.
Nice. How does one find the muse?
Well, you have to get rid of the garbage. Isn't that true about all of
About so
life?
many things.
I
Yes.
know. It's like, wow, where to begin? Starting with that, that critic inside of our head saying, oh, I
Yeah.
can't do. Like I had, challenges because, like I said, my family was not
Mhm.
terribly worldly. You sound like you came from, you had a little bit of a go ahead. You had a labyrinth outside your front door. You said,
Yes.
wow, how cool
Yes.
is that? I mean, I had like, like a lawn to mow, and that was about it. But I think we're all given exactly what we need. So it's
Mhm.
not like, oh, gee, why didn't I get better nurturing? But the
Mhm.
nurturing that I got was exactly what my yearning to be needed.
Mhm.
So I had challenges. So because of the challenges, I was not going to stop. And I
Mhm.
decided to be stronger and stronger and stronger. So even at the very start of my art career, my art was very strong.
Mhm.
It's never been pretty. It's been
Mhm.
pretty shocking. Yeah,
There. Yeah.
and I just decided that why should I make art that's not going to be anything but like very enticing and
Mm.
seductive and all these strong words instead of just pretty.
Mhm.
That doesn't interest me,
Mhm.
really.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's that expression of who we are on some level. And I was told once, talking about like listening to people in my life, and someone said to me, Mari, you're not going to listen to someone who's a little quiet voice. You need someone who has got a big voice that will listen to. But
Yeah,
yeah, it makes me think that you too have, you know, the strong adjectives to describe the work that you
yeah.
do.
It's funny. I'm ringing a bell now that I read a quote by Franz Kafka the other day, who was a very, surreal writer,
Mm-hmm.
and people love his work. And he said, you have to use strong images and strong words
Mm.
to break through people's iced over hearts.
Mm. Oh, yeah. Isn't
I
that the truth?
and that quote came from this drawing that I had done where it's me and I have this axe and I'm striking this ice covered heart of mankind.
Yeah.
And that's basically the way I feel about art, whether it's writing or dance, or it has to be strong in
Mm-hmm.
order to penetrate the barriers that people have put up throughout our generations of challenges. A lot of
Yeah.
people are just, they live in fear, and
Absolutely.
they have to be broken of that with the strongness of love.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be challenging. It can be challenging. And
Right,
it's
yeah.
pretty magical when it cracks open and when it happens,
Oh
for
yeah.
sure.
And then you know it too. You were saying, well, how do you
Yeah.
feel this? You just know when your heart has opened.
Mm.
You just like are in harmony and you don't have
Mhm.
any, there's nothing going on in your head saying, oh, judging, oh, I could do better than that. Oh, they're not as good as me, or blah, 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 blah. I mean, that's all just ego stuff. And
Yeah.
when we're truly in that groove, that flow, our
Hmm.
mind is pretty quiet. Our,
Hmm.
our mind has just gotten out of the way
Yeah.
because the creative force is beyond mind.
Mm.
It's the intuition.
Yeah. That subconscious space that
Yeah,
we don't see often.
right.
Some of us don't see often. I imagine you see it more often than others, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
When
I
you
was
think,
trained as a dancer too, I wanted to say, because,
oh, yeah.
and so, like, for instance, I did a lot of dance when I was younger. So, as a visual artist, when I want to create a certain image where there's movement, I
Hmm.
can, in my mind, just do the movement. I don't need
Mm.
a model.
Yeah.
I don't need somebody to show me like where the arms go and all that because I'm so familiar with having had that experience. So
Hmm.
it's a combination of you have to do some learning. You have to either look at books or go to museums or
Yeah.
see great art, great inspiration. And then you also just have to go into this intuitive place where you feel it inside your
Hmm.
bones.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the intuitive piece is something we so easily discount or set aside or ignore, but it's such a huge part of creativity and creative expression and creative awareness in life. So,
Oh yeah, if you look at the animals, I mean, like look at some of the nests that
oh my,
birds make.
yeah,
I mean, just from their natural instinctual intuition, that's their birdiness, and some of the nests are like, where do they come up with these things? This God-given gift of true
yeah,
creativity. I mean, they're so bizarre, aren't they?
yeah. And it makes me think of, spider webs and how stunningly beautiful and creative they are when all of their
Yeah.
glory and seeing them. I'm so curious. I know we've talked a lot about, art expression, but in terms of like everyday creativity, what are some everyday issues you have had to use creativity to solve?
Oh my gosh. Well, my house is very, very unlike any other house in the neighborhood. It's that kind of thing where I want to live surrounded by magic. I
Yeah.
want to I want to live surrounded by the things that tantalize my soul, that
Mm.
ring my bell, that
Mhm.
flip my bick.
I love it.
And yeah, and so gardening, for instance, I don't have a
Mm.
blade of grass where I live. I grow bamboo,
Mm.
timber bamboos in the middle of suburbia where it looks like Costa Rica.
Yeah.
But I'm in North Florida, and I look for things that like I can find in the woods, and I'll bring them to my property and I'll
Mhm.
nurture them like
Mm.
wild plantains.
Mhm.
And they grow as if they were in a tropical place because they've been given enough space and nurturement
Yeah.
and and that's just one of the ways. I mean, like even like I had a microwave once that I painted
Oh.
because I don't believe in microwaving food, but I turned it into a piece of art
Uh-huh.
because it had a light on it. I didn't want to get rid of the light and the fan. So
Yeah.
everybody would come in my house and say, "Oh my God, I've never seen a microwave like that." I said, "Well, it's a shelf. It's a place where I just put a hat, really." But I thought
Yeah.
it was a good joke, and
Yeah.
it made people really like pay attention. Like, wow, you can do even something beautiful with a microwave. I
Mhm.
don't even use a microwave, but yet it turned it into something beautiful.
Yeah. I love that story and I love being, the image you painted of living in suburbia surrounded by things that you would find in Costa Rica and that tropical
Yeah.
existence.
And
Yeah.
in order to do that, I had to get rid of the lawn, and neighbors it was really weird when we first moved to this neighborhood. It was like 15, 16 years ago. Somebody left a nasty note on our door saying, "We don't appreciate what you're doing here."
Oh my
And
goodness.
I know it was like people just didn't get it.
Yeah.
But xeriscape is going to be more and more and more
Yes.
embraced, especially in places where there's drought. Because
Right.
if you plant properly, and I'm a plant person. Early in my career, I was a botanical illustrator.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I have an intimate relationship with plants because once you draw plants, like as a scientific illustrator, you're like you're going inside their cellular structure. You
Mhm.
become very familiar with every single little detail, that every
Yeah.
little node, the texture. And so some of the neighbors were not happy with what we did, but now everybody's blown away because I could envision what it was going to look like.
Yeah.
And okay, we had to get rid of the lawn, but we don't mow our lawn. We just like chop down one of these big huge stalks. It's called a culm.
Uh-huh.
And bamboo is a grass.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So we
love
just take
it.
down one big huge culm of grass at a time.
I mean, it sounds like even though your neighbors couldn't see the vision, they've come around. So this may have taken some time, but kind of the everyday challenge of navigating relationships with your neighbors and using
Yeah.
creativity to, you know,
Yeah, I mean, it's really nice to just embrace, um, plants as a creative way of expressing
mhm.
yourself. It does,
Yeah.
and also to grow your own food. I mean, that's a beautiful creative endeavor.
Mhm.
And lately, I've been having fun with inviting monarchs to come to our property,
Nice.
and I've discovered they love zinnias,
Yes.
not just milkweeds. So it's really nice to know that you can do things environmentally
Mm,
helpful to the
mhm.
planet,
Yeah.
not just to go out and pick it against, petrol and, the use
Right.
of whatever violence against the earth that we have, but we can actually grow things, either our own
Yeah.
food or, more flowers for the monarchs.
Yeah. I mean, it's all creativity, right? That flowers are expressing themselves in
Oh
their
yeah.
colors and showing up. I love it.
Yeah, and like I love to pick what they call deadheads. You get
Mm,
you get rid of the zinnias by deadheading them,
yeah.
so you get more profuse new blossoms. But the older blossoms are beautiful.
Mm,
They look like antique flowers.
yeah.
So I pick the deadheads and I make a bouquet of them, and they are exquisitely beautiful.
I love it.
Yeah, and like flowers don't have to be like perfect and
Yeah.
absolutely fresh. I mean, it's just like we human beings, I'm
Right.
a woman that they are, I'm in my wisdom years. Thank God. I finally got to some wisdom. But we are just as beautiful as young women who just like
Exactly.
exude vitality.
Yeah, I love it. Oh my gosh, this has been such a treat to talk with you about everything. I just have one last question.
Okay.
What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
Oh, that's a good one because I am a lifelong
Mm-hmm.
yogini. You can remember that women are yoginis because yoginis wear bikinis. And I am 74 years old, and
Mm-hmm.
I have been doing yoga since I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And because of scoliosis, I
Mm.
had to do something.
Yeah.
So I have a lifelong practice. It's, going into 60 years of doing yoga now.
Wow.
And I, inside my body, I listen to my body saying, "Body, the temple of my spirit." That's
Mm-hmm.
its nickname. What would you like to do today when we do
Mm.
our mind, body, spirit practice called yoga? And my body will tell me. I don't say to my body, "Oh, this is what you're going to do," and
Right.
fit my body into what I think I should do. But
Mm-hmm.
my body, I listen to it, and my body will say, we need to do a few more deep core things today,
Mm-hmm.
or we need to do a few more balanced things, or
Mm-hmm.
hey, I really need to do a twist.
Mm-hmm.
And once you learn, once again, your basic stuff, like you have to take some instructions with poses to
Mm-hmm.
see how yoga works, or if you're a dancer, how to move certain things. And then you get out of the way of your ego and just let the creativity flow, even in a yoga practice. So my body feels excellent today. Thank you for asking.
Excellent. I love it. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for chatting with me. If people want to learn more about the work that you do or books that you have, how could they go about doing that?
Right. Well, it's all on my website, teZa Lord. That's TEZA LORD. And I call it my mothership because I'm really a space cadet. and and there you will see my 4 books and my YouTube channel and podcast, and I'm all over Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff, all that good stuff.
Wonderful. I'll put that in show notes so people have easy access to it. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. It has been such a treat. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Oh, great. Well, we can continue anytime you want. I love to share about, just the magic of life. That's my thing.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.